All right, we are live. We're live from Rome, and there's something I was missing. I was like, okay, we are doing the NSTV show. It is very exciting. It is very exciting to be doing the NSTV show. We are getting some interesting people today. Again, we had a very interesting conversation with Randall. And one interesting thing is also that I checked out one of my friends from Vancouver, Pranav's stream. He was streaming that from this one co-working space, a beautiful co-working space called Anco. That was amazing to see, and it's really cool to see like how when people start with streaming, very they start with very say technical things. They are like, okay, let me learn about how this one DNA thing works and stuff like that. I'm curious about that. But as you go deeper and deeper, then you start thinking about that. Wait, what do I truly care about? What do I truly care about? And today he's talking about love and beauty, and that is it. That is it. What we truly care about, what the feelings that we feel about, the feelings that we feel, the things that we think, all that kind of stuff. We rarely talk about them. We end up only we end up only nerding about the technicalities. The technicalities. How does this thing work? This very specific feature work. That is what we end up thinking a lot about. One interesting thing is the entire story of NSTV. NSTV, the entire story of NSTV has been very interesting. So, the book club was pretty cool, and then there was a massive showcase going on. There was a massive showcase, and then the team asked me that, okay, put the books in the library where the books belong. So we put the books back in the library, and then there was an event. There was something an event, and one of my friends is a filmmaker. He comes to me and he's like, I want to know, how come we don't have a place where I can find YouTube channels of every single creator over here? And I was like, okay, let's do it. We put it on our Notion page, we published a website, we put it on Discord, and then one guy's like, this is cool, we should make it a Netflix style thing. And then we made it, and then I was like, what should we call this? And then Claude designed some really good stuff, and I was just like, I was going, and I was literally sitting with a friend, and I'm like, keep going, Claude, what are you doing? Keep going, keep going, keep going. um, I don't know what to do. Vercel, you are asking me to do Vercel. What's the easiest way? It's like, yeah, Vercel. I'm like, okay, cool, do it. What do you want? What more? You want me to publish this? What? Do it. Why are you asking me to do it? So, like after pushing Claude to do everything, and then I don't know how I came up with this name NSTV, and I was like, hey, buy NSTV for me. That's a cool name. And obviously NSTV.com is gonna be really expensive. I think it was like $70,000, something like that. He's like, yeah, bro, why not? And then as he's searching that, the next domain name that I see is called NSTV.world, and it said like $5. And I'm like, hey, will you buy that for me? And I think the book club kind of created this thing in me that, oh, yes, there are, if you do the thing, people will want to help you. And he was like, I will buy for you. He bought it. I shipped it. We got on Vercel. We connected the domain name. It's running now, and yeah, and then we put it out there, and people loved it. And then people are actually sending me feedback. The core team is sending me feedback that, oh, actually, instead of YouTube creators, can you add all the creators over there? Add Instagrammers, add TikTokers, add all the people that you know. And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. And then slowly, the entire thing evolved. The entire thing evolved. Let me quickly write one thing. There was actually one creator who I thought of adding their Instagram, TikTok, because that's where they are more active at. But okay, that's that. All right. What are you talking about? Okay, so I forgot, lost the track. But anyways, Anyways, yeah. Um, wow, I was talking about. Okay, yeah. So Instagram, TikTok, all of that, and then we added that, and then we went on to work on other things. We were like, okay, now what's the next thing? The next thing is we need a live streaming show. We need a show. We need a daily live stream show, which is called NSTV, and every day, whatever, 5 p.m. and or however long it takes for me to find the next guest, we will do that. We'll find the next person, and we'll make it happen. And that's how we're gonna keep going. How we're gonna keep building, and this was interesting. This was now interesting. And then 2 days later, I get really sick and everything stops. And then 2 days later, someone is like, oh, you should add this feature. You should add this feature. And then we kept going. We kept going. And now finally, I think we have a really good state where the team over here, they had built like a member directory, but now we also have another member directory, which is we also have another member directory which is more like very focused on creators, and that is really cool. That is really cool. This is again, we're going through bundling and unbundling of the software, and it's very cool. It's very cool. This is how things should be. By the way, this all started because there was supposed to be a book club called The Spoke Zarathustra in today, and it wasn't there. And I'm like, wow, I have a need to be philosophical today, to have some interesting conversations today. So then I pick up this guy, I find this one guy, and I'm like, hey, are you going to talk to me about The Spoke Zarathustra? And he's like, yeah, why not? I'm walking to KK Mart to grab some Coke and Sprite. Walk with me. I'm like, perfect, let's talk. And then we talk, and we actually have a really good conversation, and we talk about some interesting stuff. And then I do more conversations with Claude, and now I'm doing more conversations over here. So it's like once you have a certain urge, that itch needs to be scratched. That's it. And then what's next? Okay, one interesting thing we also want to talk about is the MTS situation, the monitoring the situation, the new podcast by A16Z. It's interesting. They are doing this 24/7 thing. It seems like at first I thought that okay, they have hired a lot of media fellows, and now they have kind of brought all of them under one umbrella where they are like, okay, this is our daily live stream show. We're gonna keep going, and you all are gonna keep switching spaces between each one of them and keep finding interesting content and keep talking. The problem now is that there are many problems over here. Number one, it is coming from brand. When you come from a brand, you are not the you are performing without, yeah, you are performing in a container. Ideally, the entire place, the entire space has to become you. Ideally, the entire place has to become you. That's what needs to happen. That is the only way people are going to respect you. When Jordy and John built TVPN, the TVPN, what TVPN looks like is the personality. You can see that it is a mixture of personality of both Jordy and John. Jordy's all into design, all into marketing, really smart about the strategy, how he thinks about if everything is a remix, and if everything is copying, how to smartly copy, how to smartly steal. You can see that. And then the format of it, the cadence of it, the depth of it, that comes from John. So it's a beautiful combination of these two personalities. But now what MTS is like, okay, designed by the visual identity is designed by some agency, and then some third party agency, and then you have just like a news channel, you have slotted every personality within that, so nobody actually gets a true chance to add to that art. It's more like everybody's put into a container to perform. And again, exactly like we're talking about with streaming, what streaming allows you to do is realize that what people truly connect with is the personality. So they truly want to know about the personality, which means the personality has to share some personal things that they are thinking about. That is how you connect. You don't just connect if you are just talking about you don't just connect if you're talking about very specifically that what do we call databases. If I'm only talking about relational databases all the time with all that passion, yes, it's cool, but you also kind of want to know the person behind who keeps talking about relational databases. So Yeah, that's also very interesting. I think this is where MTS is gonna struggle. MTS is from the forefront. It looks like it is struggling and it is relying on guests. And then there was this one guy who's literally okay. This is the another thought. Number one is this entire personality-driven media thing, where you want a personality to drive that thing and be and the way that person thinks, that becomes the product. And you can see it's like you have an ideology, you have a philosophy, and everything around you is a physical manifestation of that philosophy and ideology. And when people get in touch with the physical manifestation of your ideology and your philosophy, they feel, even without knowing that there's a philosophy, even without knowing the philosophy, they feel that there is something over here. They feel that there is something deeper over here that they feel connected to. And that's what you're truly looking for. That's what you're truly looking for. That it's not that everything looks cool, everything looks beautiful, and you have just put them together. They all have a reason to exist there. They all belong to this beautiful vision that one person has, and everything plays a role in that. So yeah, that's how we like to operate. Okay, so this was MTS. I think the next one is like I saw one of the guys who was like literally like scrolling one of the websites and he's reading it. I don't think that makes sense. That doesn't really make sense, because you also need to give time. Most of the insights, Friedrich Nietzsche has this idea that walking is a technology. Why? Because when you walk, you come up with really good thoughts. So you should be walking, and it's actually really cool. I used to walk 15, 16K steps every single day. And now coming to NS, coming to network school, the fact that you have everything within one hotel and you don't really have to go out, and I started to live that life, I felt like I'm missing something. I'm not going out, I'm missing out on my walks, which I absolutely loved, and I really miss them. So I need to go back out on walks. Earlier I used to go out on walks because I had to do something. I had to do my grocery run, I had to go to the gym, I had to go to my sauna spot. Wow, life has just totally changed. This is the new reality. This is the new reality. Very interesting. Yeah, things need to feel closer. Things need to feel more and more closer. We can't feel isolated. We can't feel isolated too much. Yeah. So yeah, the idea is that number one, there's this idea called you have to let your idea simmer. You have to let your idea simmer. You consume content, you consume them slowly, you consume them, uh, let's say, quickly, slowly, intentionally, and then you let those ideas simmer. They ingrain in your brain, or they ingrain, your brain slowly absorbs those ideas, and then you come up with something. And that's what matters. if you are if somebody puts a live stream camera on you and you're being live streamed constantly, and you have to now talk about things, and the problem is, again, like, these people think that's a job. They stop thinking about it as art. They start looking at it as a job. That is the difference. That is one of the key differences. And once again, the fact that it's run by a VC firm. Actually, this is very interesting. This is actually very, very interesting. Once again, it's run by a VC firm. It's again not coming from an art perspective. It's all coming from a business perspective, trying to influence you, and it might create a lot of slop outside. So let me quickly see what how people are reacting right now. So I'm going récemment, recent. Recent doesn't work actually. Okay. What I would change with MTS, so number one is interact with chat. Even the haters, no more monologues. We love you, Balaji, but not enough for a 2 hour monologue. More dynamic input and engagement from a host. Too VC flavored. You can't change this. You can't change this. Okay, what's the best way to look at the... Okay, it would be quote tweets. Let's look at the quote tweets. Taylor Lorenz on why techno-optimism is gone from the political left to the evolution of tech industry. When I started reporting on tech and getting involved in tech, that was the early 2010s. The whole tech industry was like, Obama, we love tech. The tech companies were seen as progressive. I understand the criticism of big companies, but I don't understand the criticism of technology. I think they conflate technology with big tech or big companies. I think we can criticize certain policies of big companies and still love technology. P. Marka says we haven't had... It's interesting, like Eric Thornburg, the evolution of Eric Thornburg, the progression of Eric Thornburg, where he's like content, media, and then he's like all in media. Now I'm 24/7 live on media. We haven't had a true internet election yet, and he thinks we'll have a fully internet candidate by 2032. People talk about Trump as the internet candidate, but he's really a hybrid. He's also a television, and of course his entire career was made on television. Entirely based on internet, where they don't pay any attention to what's on TV. They are going to be 100% a creature of the internet. How long are their streams?
Also, what Exercise Macro Hard is attempting to do.
This was just 1 hour. Okay.
Also, what Exercise Macro...
So now we look at citation. Okay, somebody commented. I don't know who the audience is for MTS, but I'm guessing it's techies because the concept is a great idea, but the shows and hosts are beyond boring, literally perfect to take a nap to. The guests have been bled, don't get challenged or fact checked, they are on too long. I think he's just talking biology over here. Okay. SpaceX said it has entered an agreement to either acquire Cursor or pay 10 billion for their work together. I think this is all being done to try to get the SpaceX IPO out this summer at the valuation that Elon wants. Situation detected. You don't need a lot to do that. Oh no. This is what they're talking about when they talk about the branding. The branding is not exactly very exciting. I would rather have a short war with Iran to prevent them from getting nuclear weapons and to reassert American influence in the region rather than letting us just run over by China. Okay. And there is Signal, who joined the chat. Okay, let's see. So here we'll look at a bunch of quote tweets. Okay, interesting. Appears to be a live streamer switching back and forth between Twitter, Kelchi, and Wikipedia and Googling things like Rizzler birthday. Okay, good one. This show won't work because these people aren't hot. Yes, you need good looking people. Absolutely zero aura out of the host. Bearish. Just a little more juice than TBPN. Rare to see one of the big platforms, big favorites quite like this. Hmm. Chronicling the singularity. Very interesting. If you're on TV, the future is just reading tweets on air. Sean McGuire. Yeah, the branding needs to be fixed, right? Non-threat guy. There are some things money can buy. For everything else, there's MTS. They got Packy. I think it's not about the lineup. It's not about the lineup. The lineup is good. They got Signal, they got Packy, they got Sean. It's not about the lineup. MTS hosts off to a great start, incorrectly stating the number of wars the US has been a part of since Iraq War. Hmm. The number you guys see is total viewership over the entirety of the stream. One view is 2 seconds with 50% of the player visible. 100k is not bad for 4 hours, but they have a lot of launch interest. Real numbers will settle 2 weeks. Welcome back, Cheddar. Ooh, MTS will be successful. They will not receive the same CPM as TBPN commanded, but they don't need to. Posting clips that will be supported by some large accounts on the platform that are part of the team is scalable and repeatable. Becomes synonymous with slop, a very real potential outcome given how frequently they will be posting and people's disdain for anything that's not TBPN. A TBPN wants to increase the value of a brand by bringing it into its universe. It may be negative to be associated with the brand if people don't find host endearing or content useful. Lol, not even close to the same vibes. Hmm. Very interesting. So 282. So this is what Twitter does. X is putting a lot of, it's basically doing accumulation of all the numbers. 282,000. And their most recent had 4,000. Most recent stream had 4,000 and then 15,000. I don't know how they are doing this. It seems very random. But anyways, that's MTS. So yeah, I think the personality driven media is really important. Um, I'm not sure how much they share personal stuff, how much the TVPN guys were sharing personal stuff, but I don't think so they were sharing much. But it was personality driven. You have to love the personality, you have to be really engaged with the personality, you have to kind of find the arc of that personality interesting. And for me, it's interesting. Like right now, we're thinking about NSTV. Like, what? How should we think about NSTV? Do I need to find one partner like TBPN with whom I keep on hosting, or do I become the node? Do I become the, let's say, the key part of NSTV, and then everyone I just keep talking to everyone else? So this is also very interesting. This is very interesting. But anyways, that is that the stream. Is that the stream? Something interesting we found was, so we're looking at this video called Everything is a Remix, and in Everything is a Remix, they talk about Star Wars and what Star Wars is inspired by, and what is Star Wars inspired by. One of the storyline of Star Wars, one of the ideas is Joseph Campbell's idea, or one of the concepts that he talks about, which is call for adventure. And then Joseph Campbell monomyths. It has 17 stages. I thought this was very interesting. Departure, initiation, and return. First is call for adventure. Number two is refusal of the call. Then you get supernatural aid. You get crossing the first threshold. You get belly of the whale. The hero leaves the known world, enters the unknown. Threshold guardian. Crossing is irrevocable. Once you've entered, the rules change and the old self begins to be left behind. Belly of the whale. The hero is swallowed, descending into darkness, losing their bearings, sometimes apparently dying. Is the final separation from the known world and the symbolic death of the old self. The hero emerges transformed or doesn't emerge at all. After the belly of the whale, you can't go home. The person who left. Initiation, the road of trials. A series of tests, ordeals, and enemies teaches a lesson. Each strips away something false or forges something new. The labors of Hercules. Failure is common and instructive. The point is transformation through sustained difficulty. The meeting with the goddess. An encounter with a figure of unconditional love, often feminine, representing wholeness, union, and the reconciliation of opposites. Wow. An encounter with a figure of unconditional love, often feminine, representing wholeness, union, and the reconciliation of opposites. In older myth, this is literal. The hero marries the goddess, sleeps with the queen, is blessed by a divine mother. Reads it psychologically as the encounter with the animus, the contrasexual element of the psyche. The hero learns that what they thought they sought outside is an aspect of their own being. Wow. The hero learns that what they thought they sought outside is an aspect of their own being. I love Joseph Campbell. Woman as temptress. Campbell's name for this stage is dated and narrow. The underlying idea is broader. It's the temptation to abandon the quest for some seductive substitute. Physical pleasure, comfort, power, wealth, a false love. Campbell's name for the stage is dated and narrow. The underlying idea is broader. It's a temptation to abandon the quest for some seductive substitute. Physical pleasure, comfort, power, wealth, a false love. The point isn't that women are tempters. It's that at a certain depth of the journey, the hero is offered an easier ending and must refuse it. Easier ending, and he must refuse it. Name for the stage is dated and narrow. The underlying idea is broader. It's a temptation to abandon the quest for some seductive substitute. Physical pleasure, comfort, power, wealth, false love. The point isn't that women are tempters. It's that of a certain depth of the journey, the hero is offered an easier ending and must refuse it. Atonement with the Father, the confrontation with the figure of ultimate power in the hero's life, the one who holds the authority to judge, bless, destroy, or forgive. Often literal father, sometimes a god. The confrontation with the figure of ultimate power in the hero's life, the one who holds the authority to judge, bless, destroy, or forgive, often a literal father, sometimes a god, sometimes an internalized authority. Campbell calls this the center of the whole journey. Atonement is deliberately at one meant. The hero must make peace with this power, neither by submitting to it nor by defeating it, but by recognizing themselves in it and it in them. The old fear-based relationship to authority dissolves. The confrontation with the figure of ultimate power in the hero's life, the one who holds the authority to judge, bless, destroy, or forgive. Often a literal father, sometimes a god, sometimes an internalized authority. Campbell calls this the center of the whole journey. The hero must make peace with the power, neither by submitting to it nor by defeating it, by recognizing themselves in it and it in them. The old fear based relationship with authority dissolves. Apotheosis. A moment of expanded consciousness. The hero transcends the limits they began with of self, of understanding, of fear, of death. They become briefly something larger. This is the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, Christ transfigured on the mountain, Neo seeing the matrix as code. The ego is no longer the organizing principle, something deeper has taken over. The meeting with the goddess, the road of trials. Atonement with the Father, apotheosis, a moment of expanded consciousness. The hero transcends the limits they began with of self, of understanding, of fear, of death. They become briefly something larger. This is the Buddha. The ego is no longer the organizing principle, something deeper has taken over. The ultimate boon, the goal of the quest is achieved. The elixir, the treasure, the knowledge, the grail, the rescued person, the answer. But Campbell is careful. The boon is not really the point. The ultimate boon. The goal of the quest is achieved, the elixir, the treasure, the knowledge, the grail, the rescued person, the answer. But Campbell is careful. The boon is not really the point, it's the external sign of the internal transformation. The hero has become capable of receiving it, which is why they can hold it at all. It's the eternal sign of the internal transformation. What is this called? Monomyth. It's pretty cool. And then we have return. The ultimate boon, return. Refusal of the return. Having reached the height, the hero may not want to come back. Who will leave paradise, enlightenment, the company of gods? The Buddha is said to have hesitated before teaching. Many heroes would rather stay in the special world. Frodo, in a sense, never fully returns. The magic flight. Sometimes the return is a chase. The hero escapes with the boon while forces try to reclaim it. Indiana Jones fleeing the collapsing temple. The stage captures the sense that transformation is contested. What you have won is not automatically yours to keep. Rescue from without. The hero may need help to come back. The journey outward requires their own will. The journey back sometimes requires others to pull them through. The stage acknowledges that reintegration is not a solo act. The crossing of the return threshold. The mirror of stage for the hero returns to the ordinary world and now has the problem of translation. How do you bring wisdom from a realm where it made sense back to a place where it sounds like madness? Returning mystics, returning veterans, returning artists all face this. Much of the meaning of the journey depends on what the hero does here. How do you bring wisdom from a realm where it made sense to a place where it sounds like madness? Returning mystics, returning veterans, returning artists all face this. Much of the meaning of the journey depends on what the hero does here. Master of two worlds. The mature stage, the hero can move fluently between the ordinary world and the extraordinary one. They no longer have to choose. The monk who lives in the marketplace, the warrior who is also a poet, the executive who meditates. One was separate, is now integrated. The mature state, the hero can now move fluently between the ordinary world and the extraordinary one. They no longer have to choose. The monk who lives in the marketplace, the warrior who is also poor, the executive who meditates. What was separate is now integrated. Freedom to live, the final stage. The hero, no longer ruled by fear of death or attachment to outcome, can live fully in the present. They have completed the cycle and become someone whose being is itself a gift to their community. In Campbell's language, they are liberated from anxiety of the ego and free to act. Freedom to live, the final stage. The hero, no longer ruled by fear of death. I think this reminds me of something very interesting. One of my friends asked me today that I forgot the question, but my response was that feels like I had a superpower, and earlier I was fighting upstream, but now I'm flying downstream. And that's a difference. That's a difference. That's a difference that I feel right now. This is what I was good at. This is what I was good at. I found that I was good at, and I had to be around this. Maybe it's not even about this superpower, the skill. It's just the fact that everybody's born with it. You just don't have the environment to truly leverage, truly experience, truly engage with the skills that you have with the in the environment that you are put into. So you want to put yourself into an environment when you can truly engage with the skills that you have got, and that will make things much more exciting. Freedom to live, the final stage. The hero, no longer ruled by fear of death or attachment to outcome, can live fully in the present. They have completed the cycle and become someone whose being is itself a gift to their community. In Campbell's language, they are liberated from the anxiety of the ego and free to act. Move fluently between the ordinary world and the extraordinary one. They no longer have to choose. The monk who lives in the marketplace, the warrior who is also a poet, the executive who meditates. What was separate is now integrated. The final stage, the hero, no longer ruled by fear of death or attachment to outcome, can live fully in the present. They've completed the cycle and become someone whose being is itself a gift to their community. Campbell designed the structure to be cyclical, non-linear. The boon brought back seeds, new journeys for others, and a life may contain many such cycles at different scales, one for a career, one for a marriage, one for a spiritual awakening, one nested inside another. Not every story hits every stage, and few do so in order. Campbell's claim is that these are the available beats, not a checklist. The heart of the journey for Campbell is the middle, belly of the whale through apotheosis. Everything before is a preparation, everything after is translation. The real work is the death of the old self and the emergence of a larger one. And the return matters. A journey without a return is incomplete. In Campbell's scheme, it produces a mystic who can speak to his village, an alignment that can't be shared, a hero stranded in the special world. The point is to come back, change, and to make the change useful to the people you left. Oh my god, oh my god. This has been a massive thing. Like, there's this one book, Turning Pro, which I gave away to my friend, and the last line is, the hero wanders, the hero struggles, the hero returns. You are that hero, and the hero always returns. You gotta return. And the return matters. A journey without a return is incomplete. In Campbell's scheme, it produces a mystic who can speak to his village, an enlightenment that can be shared, a hero stranded in the special world. The point is to come back changed and to make the change useful to the people you left. Christopher Vogler's 12-stage version, which is what most screenwriters actually use, collapses some of these, particularly in the return, and renames others to feel less mythological. But the architecture is the same, and once you have seen it, it's hard to unsee it in novels, films, video games, religion, religious biographies. If you're honest, in the shape of your own life's larger transitions. What were some other really incredible works of Joseph Campbell? We also are using Opus 4.7 adaptive. You don't know what that adaptive means, but let's see. Astonishingly prolific. He wrote and lectured for 6 decades, and his range goes far beyond the monomyth. The Hero with a Thousand Faces is his most famous book. Several others are arguably deeper or more interesting. Here are the ones worth knowing. The Mass of God, his magnum opus, really. 4 volume comparative mythology that took him nearly a decade to complete and is probably his most serious scholarly achievement. Primitive mythology covers the mythic imagination of hunter gatherer and early agricultural societies, tracing how myth emerges from the rhythms of hunting, planting, sex, and death. Oriental mythology treats the great mythic systems of India, China, Japan, and the Near East, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, as unified by a sense of the individual dissolving into a larger cosmic order. Occidental mythology examines the mythologies of the West, Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Greek, Hebrew, Christian, Islamic, which he argues share an opposite impulse, the assertion of the individual against the cosmos, and the drama of a personal relationship with a personal God. Creative mythology, most original volume. The authority of inherited myth in the West collapses and individual artists begin generating their own mythic worlds. Joyce, Mann, Eliot, Wagner, Nietzsche become, in effect, modern myth makers. This volume alone is a major work of literary criticism. Wow. He wrote a lot. Modern person can't simply inherit a mythic tradition the way older societies did. That we have to become artists of our own meaning, which is at once a terrifying and liberating situation. It sits at the intersection of his scholarship, his reading of literature, and his personal philosophy, and it's the book where his mind is working hardest. A worthwhile caveat. Campbell is a great synthesizer and a gifted writer, but academic specialists often regard him as more of a visionary essayist than a rigorous scholar. He flattens differences between traditions in service of finding unity. He reads myth primarily through a Jungian lens that not everyone accepts, and his grasp of particular cultures, especially non Western ones, is sometimes shakier than his confident prose suggests. Give me key takeaways. Key Okay, that was weird. Key takeaways. Give me key takeaways. Give me key. Or is the cursor on? Cursor is not on. All right. Give me key takeaways from the book The Masks of God. I emphasized too much. The masks of God. The masks of God. Sustained argument, 4 volumes, roughly 1700 pages, written between 59 and 68. Wow. Every mythology is a mask, a face put on something that is no face, culturally specific expression of a trans-cultural mystery. Humans can apprehend the ultimate directly, so they apprehend it through images, and each culture shapes its own. The project's purpose is to show both the unity behind the masks and the genuine differences between them. Load-bearing takeaways across the tetralogy, the psychic unity of humankind up to a point. Campbell begins from the premise that the human organism is everywhere the same fears, the same developmental stages, the same confrontations with birth, sex, authority, and death. Birth, sex, authority, and death. And that myth emerges from these shared depths. This is why certain images, the world tree, the flood, the descent to the underworld, the dying and returning God, the divine child appear in cultures that had no possible contact with each other. But he's careful, the images are universal. The meanings are culturally shaped. This is the tension the whole work is trying to honor. Myth has four functions. Articulates these most cleanly elsewhere, but they run through masks as an organizing principle. Living mythology must do four things at once: evoke awe at the mystery of existence. The cosmological function is to present an image of the universe that's consistent with the knowledge of the time. The sociological function is to validate and support a particular social order. The psychological function is to guide the individual through the stages of life: birth, initiation, marriage, work, old age, death. When a mythology fails at any one of these, especially when its cosmology is contradicted by science, as has happened in the modern West, it begins to die, and the culture has to either renew the myths or invent new ones. Myths begins with the body and the hunt. The hunter's encounter with the animal he must kill to live, and the planter's encounter with the seed that must die to produce new life. Animal master myths, shamanic ecstasy, sense of a covenant with the hunted animal, who gives itself willingly if treated with respect. Myths of dismemberment, sacrifice, and the buried god whose body becomes the crop, traces both back deep into the Paleolithic, reading cave paintings and burial sites as already mythic. When later world religions talk about a god who dies, it's crazy to think about it. Like, we have solved this problem at such a deep level that we have stopped thinking about these things. It's no more a problem. Hunting, food, it's no longer a problem, and that's the reason we can keep going, and we can keep building things. Wow. When later world religions talk about a god who dies and is reborn, or about ritual eating of a sacred body, they are speaking a language tens of thousands of years old. The individual as illusion, on India, China, Japan, and the pre-Zoroastrian Near West, argues that the deep structure of Eastern mythic thought is a dissolution of the separate self into a larger whole. Brahman is Atman, the drop returns to the ocean, the Tao moves through you. The Buddhist self is a convenient fiction. The goal of the religious life, broadly speaking, is to see through the illusion of individuality and recognize one's identity with the cosmic ground. Myth, ritual, meditation, and social role all point the same way. Myth, ritual, meditation, and social role all point the same way. Release the ego into the whole. Campbell reads this not as a doctrine, but as an orientation. A way the East answers the fundamental question of how the one relates to the many. The goal of the religious life, broadly speaking, is to see through the illusion of individuality and recognize one's identity with the cosmic ground. Myth, ritual, meditation, and social role all point the same way. Campbell reads this not as a doctrine, but as an orientation, a way the East answers the fundamental question of how the one relates to the many. The individual against the cosmos. Irreducible reality and moral weight of the individual, and on a personal relationship with a personal God. You argue with Yahweh, you defy the gods like Prometheus, you suffer like Job, you answer to a creator who is other than you. This produces a mythology of ethics, history, and linear time. This produces a mythology of ethics, history, and linear time, a story moving toward a goal. In contrast to the Eastern cyclical emphasis, Campbell doesn't say one is better, he says the West's distinctive energy, including its science and its individualism, comes from the structural commitment to the separate self as real and meaningful. Wow. The East West contrast is the master schema and also its biggest vulnerability. This is where serious readers should push back on Campbell. The division is illuminating as a broad stroke but flattens enormous variety within each hemisphere. There are plenty of Western mystical traditions that dissolve the self, Meister, Eckhart, the Sufis, Plotinus, and plenty of Eastern traditions that emphasize individual moral agency and personal devotion. Addresses it, but the overall architecture of the tetralogy still leans hard on the contrast. Take the schema as a useful map, not as a final description. Creative mythology, the modern crisis and the artist as myth maker. Volume 4 is the one that most directly addresses our situation. Campbell argues that from the 12th century onward, Western Europe produces something historically unprecedented, a mythology grounded not in tribal inheritance or priestly authority, but in individual experience. Tristan and Isolde chose each other against the sacrament of arranged marriage. Dante structures an entire cosmology around his personal love for Beatrice. The Grail Knights each had to enter the forest at the point where it was darkest. Is the birth of Western idea that the individual's own experience is the source of sacred meaning. With inherited mythologies losing their grip, the artist becomes the mythographer of the age. Joyce, Kafka. They generate the symbols modern people actually live by. Campbell's implicit call to his readers is that we too much become creative mythologists of our own lives because no one is going to hand us a functioning myth. Myth is not a falsehood. All gods are ultimately masked. Modernity's challenge is cosmological. The creative answer to the modern predicament. Conclusion spread across the final volume and reinforced in his later writings. The old authority based mythologies where a priesthood tells you what the symbols mean are gone and not coming back. Arising from individual experience, tested against inner truth shared through art and relationship. Individual experience tested against inner truth shared through art and relationship and held with the knowledge that they are metaphor. This is demanding in places on ordinary people work that used to be done by tradition. But Campbell sees this as the opportunity of the modern. We can become conscious participants in our own mythic life rather than passive inheritors of someone else's.